hawa Gen Zs wamegrow up wakiona maandamano za watu wa kurusha mawe na nini. Hawa wakasema sisi tutapigwa na mawe but we'll fight in a way that we know how to fight. Na wamesoma. Unajua kitu moja Kenya tuko nayo ni nini? And I'll always I'll thank the dictator. Alikuwa anapenda masomo.
No,
Aliensure tuna masomo.
Yeah.
Aliensure like he ensured the education in Kenya is good. Like somebody can go to Kenya has very few literate people basically. Hata mtu kalifika class 8 anaweza express kwa kizungu, anaweza understand like akona IQ, akona logical thinking. Hiyo tu kwenda shule hizo tu hiyo hata kali somo kidogo kuna the education system goes. So people know how to do. We might have our flaws or kina tribalism na nini and that and liking leaders in certain ways. We have our faults. We're not the complete thing yet, but we have evolved to reach where we are right now. Where people assume that it's just we are spoiled brats. We're not spoiled brats. We know we've fought to a point whereby we know we have to keep fighting or we go back to Tanzania.
If I can guarantee you, if these activists were from Lithuania or Latvia or Uruguay, we would never even know about them.
Mm-hmm.
We would never even know that they were there because they were actually diplomats. Kwa hiyo court, and I think there were also some international human rights organizations represented in that courtroom. So the issue is, why only the Kenyans? And yes, and they do have a right to do whatever they need to do, but the question is, why only the Kenyans? And which brings me to my other question, is it, should citizens within the African continent or anywhere in the world be monitoring human rights in other countries? And the reason why I say this, we remember in Julius Nyerere's Tanzania, people who are fighting for freedom were trooping into Tanzania. That's why there's a very big population of South Africans who speak Swahili. You know, they lived in Tanzania. When you look at the history of Africa, Tanzania was one of the places where people would go to seek refuge.
Uganda nini?
Yes, and they would offer advice. And you see, it's an interesting point, Mika, you bring up because, you know, like I've been discussing with some of my Tanzanian friends, and of course zile magroup za Tanzania, mimi niko pale ndani kama mall nasikia nakaa tu kimya kimya nikisikia wanasema nini kuhusu wa Kenya, is that a lot of Tanzanians forget that we were in this phase with a more vicious dictator. Not a very long time ago. Anyone in Kenya above the age of 40 years old did experience the wrath of, they knew about the wrath of President Moi. So, and that's a time when we also were in a similar situation where we had one party, ilikuwa ni, you know, like it was KANU, or
ilikuwa chama ya baba na mama.
Ilikuwa chama ya baba na mama.
Baba na mama.
Yes, ilikuwa kila kitu. Yes, na ilikuwa ni ile, remember how vicious things were. Remember the story I was giving you guys one day, that within my lifetime, as an 11-year-old, my mother was called to school because of an essay I wrote. That's how bad things were. And we are saying this to also make Tanzanians understand that we've lived through worse. So this is not because there's also a tendency sometimes of wa Tanzania kusema nyi wa Kenya, nyinyi wa korofi, nyinyi wa tukutu, nyinyi nini, but they tend to forget that we actually went through faced with a more vicious dictator. Mika.
I was saying, there's this thing that people say, people assume, because I've also heard some Nigerian people talking about it, and they were saying like, the difference, after Nigeria, we cannot do what you guys have done because you guys are soft, like you've had soft leadership. You've never gone through bad leadership. And I tell them, one thing you guys are forgetting is that Kenyans walichoka. They got tired early. And it's been a build-up. It's been a build-up from multi-party the time from when people were Saba ikianza. It's been a build-up. It's just been evolving through the generations based on how those generations fight. For instance, like that is where you see it's Kenya for politicians to hold demonstrations, because that thing is in our blood, is in our spirit. Like it's like we are born with it. It's been taught to us day by day. Gen Zs wamegrow up wakiona maandamano za watu wa kurusha mawe na nini. Hao wakasema sisi tutapigwa na mawe, but we'll fight in a way that we know how to fight. Na wamesoma. Unajua kitu moja Kenya tuko nayo ni nini? And I'll thank the dictator. Alikuwa anapenda masomo.
No,
Aliensure tuna masomo.
Yeah.
Aliensure like he ensured the education in Kenya is good. Like somebody can go to Kenya has very few literate people basically. Hata mtu kalifika class 8 anaweza express kwa kizungu, anaweza understand, like akona IQ, akona logical thinking. Hiyo tu kwenda shule hizo tu hiyo hata kali somo kidogo kuna the education system goes. So people know how to do. We might have our flaws or kina tribalism na nini and that and liking leaders in certain ways. We have our faults. We're not the complete thing yet, but we have evolved to reach where we are right now. Where people assume that it's just we are spoiled brats. We're not spoiled brats. We know we've fought to a point whereby we know we have to keep fighting or we go back to Tanzania.
Na alafu Mika kumbuka, like when it comes to the education part, there's sometimes also this assumption that we get from our brothers, na mimi nasema hivi, nyinyi ndugu zetu, whether you like it or not, that hawa ni kizungu tu wanajua. And I'd like to say this. Yes, maybe kizungu is part of, what we learned very well in school, but I'm also going to say this. Education ya Kenya, si kizungu peke yake. When you look at Kenya as a country, Kenya is a very unique country within the African context. If you go, like in different African countries, and I'm not going to mention which one, but if you go to different African countries, in Kenya today, part of the reason, we've been talking a lot of music the past 2-3 weeks when BN was here. We've been talking a lot of music. Part of the reason why the music industry in Kenya, especially, has been experiencing some challenges, unlike in other countries like Tanzania, Congo, is that because these top musicians are fighting for divided attention with so many other people. In Kenya, unaweza kuwa lawyer na ukawa celebrity. Mm-hmm. You can be an engineer and be a celebrity. So the celebrityism is not only limited to spaces like entertainment, mm-hmm. like what you find in when you go to a country like the Democratic Republic of Congo. With all due respect, mm-hmm. But unaona sasa Kenya, these top musicians who are very good, they are competing for attention with so many other different people who are excelling in different fields.
Unajua kitu fani na Kenya ni nini?
Yeah.
Unaweza kuwa msanii umetoa ngoma haikuhit. Influencer kakuja katoa dance style. Dance style ndio ina hit kushinda ngoma yako.
Yeah, that and that happens. And that happens. So not nasema, like there's some of these narratives that we get from the other side. And there's also some misinformed narratives that even Kenyans have about Tanzanians. And I think this is where this needs to be. It would have been nice today if Mubelwa was on the panel. Mubelwa, kama unasikiza, 202-683-4570, press star 5 to speak. Hapa Yakobo anauliza, ask Mubelwa Tanzanian perceptions of Kenyans in Bongo. I have a feeling most think tuna kiherehere, and this would explain their raia and political reaction. I don't know what he meant by raia there, but it explains their political reactions. What I think, because I also have a lot of relations, I have a lot of relatives in Tanzania who are Tanzanians. Msiniulize, staki immigration ya Tanzania. Ikuje waulize ni kivipi mko na cousins Kenya na nini.
Too late.
Yeah, but I have, like family in Tanzania who are Tanzanians. And talking to them, I'm sometimes under the impression that there's also been a lot of poison that has been put on the average Tanzanian's mind about Kenyans. Because hizi issue zote, they're usually about Kenyans. If I can guarantee you, if these activists were from Lithuania or Latvia or Uruguay, we would never even know about them.
Mm-hmm.
We would never even know that they were there because they were actually diplomats. Kwa hiyo court, and I think there were also some international human rights organizations represented in that courtroom. So the issue is, why only the Kenyans? And yes, and they do have a right to do whatever they need to do, but the question is, why only the Kenyans? And which brings me to my other question, is it, should citizens within the African continent or anywhere in the world be monitoring human rights in other countries? And the reason why I say this, we remember in Julius Nyerere's Tanzania, people who are fighting for freedom were trooping into Tanzania. That's why there's a very big population of South Africans who speak Swahili. You know, they lived in Tanzania. When you look at the history of Africa, Tanzania was one of the places where people would go to seek refuge.
Uganda nini?
Yes, and they would offer advice. In fact, Mika, even Mika, I'm going to let you explain that. That's a very good example Mika is giving. When Uganda was under oppression by Idi Amin Dada, guess who came and saved the Ugandans? Mika, maybe talk a little bit about that, because these are some of the things that we are not hearing, you know, like from our mainstream media, and people are not talking about them. Mika, tell us about that situation.
That was hold up, give me a minute. So when Idi Amin was losing popularity in Uganda, and I think it was Museveni, right? It was Museveni who was being helped by Nyerere. But one thing that one mistake that Idi Amin had decided upon that time was he felt that he could start threatening his neighbors. And one of the neighbors that he saw was actually weak was who? Tanzania. And it was quite a dumb thing that led to actually to the war. I think it was something to do with killing of fishermen, arrested fishermen, and then killing them and sending them back and saying what Nyerere do. And at that time, young Museveni, who was also a general and had just decided to come and try and...
was it Museveni or Milton Obote? It was Milton Obote, yes.
Yeah. And he didn't have such a big strength in the army. And he was trying to fight and overthrow Idi Amin. And at that particular moment, what did Nyerere do? He declared war on Tanzania, and the Tanzanians helped Obote marched up to Kampala and took out Amin.
So you see, this is where we, you know, like...
should we try Omosh?
History is also important. Wacha tusikie Omosh. Let's try to hear Omosh if the echo issue has been sorted out. DJ Omosh Fire, unatusikia?
Yeah, nawasikia. Munanisikia?
Okay.
Hold on.
Yeah, actually, I think what he tried to annex a part of Tanzania.
Yeah,
and that's when he killed Tanzanian. He killed Tanzanians he tried to annex a part of Tanzania.
Yeah. Okay. Aya, sawa. Wacha tumsikie DJ Omosh. DJ Omosh, I don't think we can hear you. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we can hear. I don't know whether you're muted on your side.
No, I'm not muted on my side.
Okay, now we can hear you.
All right.
Now we can hear you much better. Much better.
There's no echo?
Ngoja. Now, people who are listening, tell us if there's an echo, because the echo...
there's another guy called Skip Pablo.
Yeah, so please tell us whether...
Pablo.
No, so tell us, no, you know, like on this part, hakuna mtu ametuambia, so we're assuming that Omosh is sounding okay. And then hapa iContent amesema 100%. Andrew Kimani anasema
Said Andrew says there's an echo. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
Andrew says
interesting
there's
because we don't hear the echo on our side, but you guys are hearing the echo. So
okay, na Pablo pia anasema bado iko.
yeah,
So
I'll try to work on that.
Yeah.
Okay,
SOS
you guys-
Bandio.
Ongea na soprano, labda ni bass ndo maybe ongea na soprano.
Yani unajua nikiongea hivyo.
Okay, aya sawa Omosh tutajaribu kusolve your issue. Unasema we have a we do you have a caller? Okay. The number to call is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. Now, iContent anasema he was asked to apologize. He was just doing it for the show. That's about Ruto. And then anasema uko Mkenya unaongea ni kama umeoana Tanzania, tunakushuku. Mimi sijaoa Tanzania. Wewe hiyo story achana nayo hiyo hapo, but I do have relatives in Tanzania. But immigration Tanzania msisikize hii story. And then content anasema bottom line Tanzania walikosea, wao ndio walianzia Kenya. Even activists wenyewe were there for a good cause. Tuseme wako in their dictatorship era na tuache. Okay, that is iContent. And if there's any Tanzanian listening, the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. So again, there was a question on, like the justification of people crossing borders for activism or to go and help another country. And of course, we've talked about the historical cases of where even Tanzania was assisting neighboring countries. But we are where we are. And then, of course, there was the torture allegations against the Tanzanian government on Boniface Mwangi and on the Ugandan activist. And this is starting to look very bad on Tanzania. So I don't know. I don't know where this will go. And when we talk about the East African community, you wonder now, what is the point of having this East African community? Because it's been problems after problems after problems. The things that were supposed, according to the original agreement that was, or this new East African community that was signed in 1999, by now, by 2025, we're supposed to be in a political federation. We're supposed to be having one president.
One country.
Yes, across the region, which I think would be very beneficial overall to the people. But I think also because of these political undertones, there's a lot of narratives that are running both sides. Na ubaya wa Kenya pia ni Kenyans assume everyone else understands jokes. You see, Kenyans, we come from kuna ile kitu ilikuwa inaitwa mchongo when we were growing up. Like we don't realize, but I think hiyo mambo ya mchongo really toughened people up, especially when it comes to online wars. Na hiyo hapo ilikuwa ni live and people would get so personal. Yeah, na kulikuwa hakuna kulia, unakubali tu
na ukilia.
Yeah. Kulikuwa hakuna kulia. Yeah. So I think that's the culture in Kenya, because sometimes some of these jokes watu hawako serious. They are said in jest, but people take them seriously. The most vicious one is the one where they went and posted an academic record of a member of parliament in Tanzania. I thought that was a bit below the belt.
But also,
yeah,
let even those Tanzanians themselves were brutally attacking someone like Martha Karua. I wish I could get that audio in Bunge.
Yeah, the
right?
viciously attacking Martha Karua.
Exactly.
Yes.
So kaende. Then the two memes that were coming out, AI generated about
Samia.
This is I don't know. tukubali pia Wakenya tulienda excess kidogo.
No, again, you know, you don't.
Walienda chini ya basement huko wali heshima ilirushwa nje. Unajua ile
You know, you can't go out there as a president and insinuate that the people who are coming to your country have a sinister motive, because that ideally can put us in Kenya, and even one of those guys in a bad, because ideally the majority of the country is what, CCM, sindio? Okay, not majority, but the government has power. Let us just agree.
Yes.
Government has power. So even with that power, whatever government says goes. Whatever, what Bandia was explaining to me is that, like, the Chief Justice is selected, not elected.
That's where Kenya was.
Yes.
Remember, the president used to select the Chief Justice.
So here, if you don't dance to the tune, and that is why you were saying, when you were saying that, you know, the government usually dictates mwenendo, how it's gonna go. So when Samia comes out and says what she's saying, insinuating that we are not going to allow, I can't remember, there's some words that she used, we're not going to allow people who have spoiled their country to come here and spoil. That, now this is coming from the president.
Yeah, you know, in a translated version, she said, we have started seeing a trend where some activists from our neighboring countries are trying to meddle in our affairs. If they have been silenced in their own countries, they should not come to disturb our peace here. This was just a small segment of what she said.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now you take that, Kenyans read that, wanasema, okay. Alafu wanaona, you have a kina Martha Karua, those ones.
And she also insinuated that Tanzania is the only stable country in the region. So that was the other problematic part.
So now, wanatupa tu masalvo.
Yeah.
Then, we hear reports of one of our citizens, there's video of him being kamatwad.
Yeah.
We can say arrested, or he's anachukuliwa.
Yeah.
We see him 4 or 5 days later injured. What do you think? In as much as maybe there's some people who support Boni, who people don't support Boni, and don't forget, you know, there's this compound that with, like, now, for example, you know, like the attempted abduction of the Tanzanian writer.
Yes.
In Kenya, like, right? The journalist, the journal. So there's so much happening. There's so much going on, right? And people are like, okay, you know what? Apana.
Now, if it
and
was,
then it's Kasongo.
If it was vice versa, Tanzanian activists came to Kenya and they were caught up by Kenyan security agencies and they were being tortured. What do you think the reaction from Kenyans would have been?
That would be good. Let me guess. Let me say this hypothetically. I don't think they
it
would.
happened, right? It did happen. It happened earlier during sometime last year. Was it earlier this year? Last year. Actually, the main critic of Mama Samia.
You're talking about Maria Sarungi.
Yeah. Yeah, so it happened. And the way Kenyans were up in arms, Kenyans made noise. She was released.
Kenyans rallied around her.
Yes.
And that's what I was telling some of my Tanzanian friends. You know, like, one of the big difference here is that if this was a Tanzanian who had come to Kenya and Kenyan security agencies arrested him, Kenyans would rally around him very fast. And of course, I'd forgotten that example of Maria Sarungi. And even there was the Ugandan Kiza Besigye. Yeah. When he was arrested in Kenya, you know, Kenyans were up in arms.
They were,
Yeah.
And here's the interesting thing.
Yeah.
Didn't Martha Karua go and defend him in court?
Besigye.
Yeah, he was going to defend Besigye in court.
She went.
Yeah. The other problem that we have in within the East African community, we are supposed to allow people to work across borders, especially like within the legal field. But Tanzania ni kama pia wamekata. There's people like PLO Lumumba, who has, you know, like certification to practice there, but I don't know exactly.
There or Zanzibar, it doesn't matter.
No. I don't know whether Zanzibar has a different bar that you have to pass. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But PLO says Tanganyika, so maybe he's limited to the mainland.
Yeah. Okay.
And not to the island.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you see the likes of PLO. PLO is one of those personalities who's been visiting Tanzania a lot and talking a lot about Tanzania and some of the good side they have. The one thing that I'd like PLO to also do, and he does a very good job, is also talk about the challenges. One area where I'm going to critique PLO is that he will never throw any critique. He was friends, of course, with John Pombe Magufuli, and he will always talk about the positives, which is good, which I think a lot of Kenyans need to know and they need to understand. And there's a lot of positives. I think their politics, despite being one party, they're a bit more disciplined in how policies are made and how things are done. Despite the fact that it's all through one party, there's a bit more sense of discipline, which there's a lack of in Kenya. So I think there's a couple of things that we can also learn from them. But then with this coming election, Mama Samia has to be very careful, because if things are not done in the right way, let's not think that what happened in Kenya cannot happen in Tanzania.
I don't think anything will happen in Tanzania.
Now, if you've been, I have been in Tanzania during an election, not mainland Zanzibar. I've been in Zanzibar during an election.
Zanzibar wale ni Mauru.
Yeah.
Au mainland Ndongori.
Yeah, sasa in Zanzibar, uko no niliona moto. Ilikuwa ni 2000, was it 2005? I think it was the 2005 election. Uko niliona moto. And it was suppressed very quick. The thing about an island like Zanzibar, it's so easy to suppress protests because it's an island, and what they do is they disconnect power, especially kama ni usiku. They disconnect power, alafu jeshi wanamwagwa kila pahali. By the time mnaamka kwenda kuswali asubuhi, mnakutana na majeshi kila kona. So yeah, so whatever you are trying to organize, you can't.
Disorganized.
Yeah, it's totally disorganized because it's a small, and the areas where people are living, like Palestine town, it's very easy to surround it and just monitor block to block. So it's very easy to contain them. Uko si kama nini, uko si kama Kenya. Kenya it's very difficult to contain a protest because it will come from all directions. Ukishika huku au wengine huku wameanza. Again, the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. Hapa Yakobo anasema Rais Suluhu is facing her first elections and she's scared of the opposition and poor international spotlight. Her government was wrong abducting the activists. And then Yakobo also, do you remember Besigye was abducted back in UG? The government are okay with selling their problematic activists to their neighbors. Sasa ndo hapo where niseme we've had a history of online clashes with Tanzanians, but I've never seen one get so personal like this.
This one was crazy.
Yeah, I've never seen one get so personal like this one, because yani imefika point where we don't understand. And I think most people are not even schooled on their rights as East African citizens. Most people don't know. Like Ikitu, I honestly, for the first time ever, I'm seeing its future as bleak.
But you see, like, okay, Mika said something, he mentioned something, Tizadu Kwangawa Softy. I don't think, and you can tell from, like, say, for example, what's happening to Lisu. What percentage? I know you interact a lot with Tanzanians.
Yeah.
Majority or many of them, or what percentage can you
say? So first of all, elections in Tanzania have never, we've had our issues with elections in Kenya, but Tanzania's elections have not been free and fair. Like anyone will tell you that. They're in that stage of ballot stuffing, Unakumbuka back in the days za Moi where ballots used to be stuffed, whereby box imeletwa but it already has ballots that are stuffed inside. By the time inafunguliwa kuhesabu, the winner is already known. So that's what's been happening, and that's the reason why Parliament is about 95% CCM. So the last election that somewhat had some semblance of some fairness, but still wasn't free and fair because they don't have an independent electoral and boundaries commission. It's still the president who appoints the electoral commission. So so the 2015 election, I want to say yes, Magufuli won it, but he won it by like 59-60%. So that shows you there's a very big part of the country that does not support CCM, but then there's also a lot of fear.
Yes, and that is why, I mean, there is a lot of fear.
Na Japani kure kibiwa hawezi tuangori. Wanavyoza kibi tuangori, hawezi tuangori hiyo design.
So
leo ndo shida. Watakuwa naibiwa kila siku juu ya hiyo.
Yeah. So Nona, there's that issue of the government is still in control of the electoral commission, and you go to the point of you're winning almost 99% of the seats.
You're like Kagame
in parliament. So I don't know. Number to call again, 202-683-4570, press *5 to speak. So hapa ndo nauliza, should the EAC just be disbanded? Ama is the issue mainly between Kenya and Tanzania?
I don't know what the issue is. I mean, cause again, like Yakobo said, our leaders ni bure kabisa, totally useless, and they're very selfish. It's them. Mm-hmm. They are a cabal that always is, whatever it is, they will protect their self-interests. It's going to be hard if it was the plan to have one president. It would be interesting to see how that would be maneuvered, especially in East Africa.
No, that can't work.
Of course,
you
have one term.
Yeah,
Museveni, who him and his wife read an apology to the Ugandans simultaneously. They apologized, and like Ruto, who was saying, if we did something to our the kids, I'm like, surely 60 people have died, many have been abducted or whatever. If he's so shameless, it's like you can't even believe it, like, and then you wonder what is the purpose of the prayer breakfast. It is hypocrisy it's on steroids.
Yeah,
these are the same supposedly God fearing, and then they allow who, by the way, these are adults, 24, 25, 26. Those are adults. Those are people who would be starting families or going to start families, or even I'll have a wife, a child or two at 25, 26, 27.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you cannot tell us or indulge us by saying that there's power breakfast, right? You cannot. And then over there you're talking about children have to respect your elders. There's still that notion of, like you're seeing a 25-year-old as a child, as a grown-ass person.
Yeah, and it's problematic. There was that other preacher who was invited in that event.
Alikuwa na inject.
Yeah,
he was injecting.
I think he went off the script. They did not go through with him, or they did not expect that he will come to inject. Yeah, I know. Yeah, so ni kama wakujua vile atakuja kusema. But now going to this Kenya-Tanzanian issue, what is the situation of actually Kenyans living in Tanzania right now? If you guys have any friends, have any family, or know anyone, what is the current situation?
Shuko Tanzania mnaekoaje?
Wacha tusikie tasema nini. Fire!
Ati Mika umeuliza nini tena?
Huko Tanzania mnaeko aje?
Okay, sisi kama wabongo wajua sasa tusema Kenya ni watu ambao wanapiga kelele, wanapiga gunzo na tumechoka. Wanisikia?
Tunakusikia.
Yeah, tunakusikia lakini yako bado
iko. Is there can somebody confirm for us whether there's an echo or not? Our listeners?
Yes, there is an echo. There is an echo.
Uko pale umeenda next time beba simu. Hii kubeba zile mikebe. Unajua ile mikebe ulikuwa unafunga ngauzi primary tumetekeza simu.
Ama ingia tu Zoom. Ingia tu Zoom. We'll work on shots.
Okay.
Honestly, I think this is it's the Wirecast Go. It's not Nini.
It's a Wirecast Go. Okay, then ingia Zoom. Mika yuko kwa Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay, then I think jaribu tu Zoom.
Ingia tu Zoom mara hiyo mara that.
Yeah.
Haraka upesi. Ali.
Promotion kuna video umeenda special treatment.
Dufumpara roho.
Maze, kwanza the way
hapa kwa Zoom ndo tutabaki tu. Huko pale umeenda kwa expensive kufanya kazi. Achana na AI. Baki kwa ground.
Unajua, like from what from the few things, from the 2 or 3 things that I know, Tanzania has become a very difficult place for Kenyans who are living there and working there. It's become a very difficult place. Na mimi najua watu wengi ambao wame give up na wakarudi, which I think is very unfortunate, because I don't think we're seeing this same thing in Uganda, because Uganda is our other neighbor. I don't think we're seeing the same thing in Uganda. So I've always just been curious and wanted to know, like exactly what it is that's happening in Tanzania. And this started when Magufuli came into effect. When Kikwete was there, I think things were a bit okay. But when Magufuli alipoingia, mambo ikachange. And with this East African Common Market Protocol, there's supposed to be free movement of labor. That is what's gonna make this community collapse if it's ever effected. The free movement of labor, that is the one thing that I can tell you for sure, majority of Tanzanians do not want.
Italeta shida.
Yeah.
Shida gani?
Italeta shida. Right now.
Italeta shida wewe.
Right now,
nachukua kazi hizo country zote mbili.
No, right now as a Kenyan, no, by the way, I honestly think there will be more Tanzanians who will come to work in Kenya, because I think the mistake that people look at this, what wanaangalia zile kazi, the visible jobs, maybe jobs tuseme kwa mfano like in the hospitality industry na nini, certain visible jobs which Kenyans used to get. Those are the ones that people look. But a majority of our populations, ukiangalia like the earning range of most people is very low. Unaona ukienda kama Gikomba kuna Watanzania wengi sana. There are so many. They are everywhere ukienda huko. So ndo nasema there's a certain cadre of people or a certain cadre of jobs, they're the ones who will benefit the most, because hizi kazi, the white collar jobs are very few.
Vile sahi kazi za vinyozi na saloon ni za
Burundi.
Wa Burundi.
Yes. Kazi za saloon, kazi za vinyozi, kazi za hawa wanaitwaje, hawa watu wa kuuza mayai. Hii mayai.
Boiro.
Yeah.
Masmocha
manini.
Yeah, there's a lot of Burundians in Kenya, and then ukienda huko kwenyu Unomike, they are working, they are farmers.
True.
Yeah. They're employed in a lot of farms. Na wako wengi sana.
And they're working hard.
Yeah. Na wako wengi sana. So ndo nasema, like the white collar jobs are very few. But hizo ndo watu wanaona. Wanasema, kwa nini wa Kenya wanakuja kuchukua makazi yetu. But I think honestly, if there's a movement in both ways, watu wanaingia huku na wengine wanaingia Kenya, I think there will be more Tanzanians who will come, especially because wa Kenya kuna kazi nyingi ambazo wa Kenya wanajigamba wataki kufanya. I know people will come and do those jobs. That's how Burundians have ended up in Kenya, because Burundi is very far from Kenya. We don't even share a border with them, but
no, we don't.
Yeah. but wamekuja.
Again, it'll make for interesting, because but I echo what Pablo said. After a while, this kitu itasahaulika. It's gonna sahaulika, and it'll be what it will be. It will be a rap, like Toro.
Kitu gani hii hapa ya Tanzanians kuja?
No, like it being this brouhaha that happened between Kenya and hii noma after a while isha
no hii hapa
isha bro.
Yeah, isha hata si tuliingia late. In fact, now Kenyans are moving on to mambo mengine.
Kenyans sasa wana celebrate nini? Madaraka di.
Yeah.
Kuna long weekend wako sherehe wale sawa vita washehe wanapiga sherehe kitambo.
Yes, kina Omosho alienda wakapatiwa ma housing projects huko kwao. Yeah.
Kwa Kisumu baba ametengeneza nyumba mingi akadonate land.
Omosho tuingie siasa kidogo ya Kenya. What is going on in those counties za Luo Nyanza, especially Homa Bay County? You know, like the Madaraka, do we call it Madaraka Festival? Or Madaraka celebrations ilienda huko? Sijui kama unatusikia Omosho.
Nawasikia, munanisikia?
Yes, we can hear you, but now we need to confirm if there is
and if there's an echo.
Yeah. No, I think uko sawa sasa. If there's an echo, someone will tell us.
Housing project zimeiva. Sorry, zinaitwaje?
Affordable housing.
Si hata Omosho sasa yuko Homa Bay anapokea housing project na
ashabook zake kadhaa. Ashabook zake kadhaa.
Unajua hata sitaongea hizo story. I'm not even going to talk those stories of zile vitu watu wamepewa na zile vitu watu hawajapewa. All I can say is this. That Madaraka Day celebrations being brought to Homa Bay County has fast forwarded the development of the stadium, because that's basically where the celebrations are going to be. Vitu kama infrastructure, roads, vitu kama stima, some of the things that watu ambaye hawakai kwa hiyo county hawaelewi ya kwamba hatukuwa nayo. I can tell you that literally tarmac in front of my shags was put in it was after December, because I was home December, January, and the tarmac had not figured. But as of I think it was about April or so, about April, we had tarmac. And the difference in terms of time that it took from mainland to get to shags, without tarmac, it was taking us about 30 minutes. With tarmac, it literally is taking us 6 to 7 minutes. So that to me is a huge deal. And those sorts of things were done because of, I guess, the friendly atmosphere with the office of the president. And those things had come through or were forced in, or whatever you want to call it. Hizo zilikuwa campaign type of, what should I say, handshake related types of things. And I'm just talking about Homa Bay County in the area where I come from. I don't know about some of the other places and what that has done. I know that like ukishuka kutoka Kisumu side, you come also into Homa Bay side, where there's the blue economy or things that are happening off the water, because everything we rely on over there we rely on a lot of water transportation, which includes ferries, includes ships, includes boats. And by boats, it's anything from motorboats to these pontoons to whatever, whether you're a tourist.
Jet skis.
Hata jet skis, kuna watu wako nazo. There are some resorts that have jet skis that are also there. But bottom line of it is that water transportation is a very, very big way of moving up and down. For instance, for me to move from the Kisumu side of the lake to come towards the Homa Bay side of the lake, we take a ferry to go across. There's also a boat, a major boat, which is like the one that you use, Ali, from Alexandria to DC.
Yes.
A water bus. We have something like that, which basically it's a big, boat that takes about 60 to 70 people, plus, goods, vitu kama maomena, makuku, masijui nini. They don't throw cows on there, but like on the ferry, these guys, they have cows, they have goats, they have a trade, market day. That's how people are moving up and down between different sides of the lake, So those sorts of things have now made that place a viable place. Very soon, what I'm calling Shags will become a major tourist attraction because you can now navigate. You literally could leave a place like, say, Kisii and come down to Homa Bay or to come down to Rusinga Island, take the day, go see where Tomboya was buried, and turn around and go back to Kisii. And that whole drive, it's not going to take you, whereas maybe it was taking you to come 5 hours round trip. It's going to cut it down because just of simply adding tarmac kutoka what they call mainland, which is Beta Point for people who may know that area, into Rusinga Island. Or you can stay on the island itself. They have nice resorts, which, believe it or not, early in December, we pay $500 a night to stay there. Now, kuna watu wanalipa.
500 shillings.
$500 a night.
Hey.
What Zimbabwe dollars?
That's peak.
Hey.
That's peak period. But Ali, that same 500 is what people are paying at Swahili Beach.
Hey, Ali, utaki kuamka breakfast unakula sausage na hipo inakuangalia hapo kando na kwambia
correct. Yes, he's telling you I'll take you on a piggyback ride.
Minda angalia hipo kwa YouTube. $500 a night.
Yes, but Swahili Beach is 500. Mika, how much is Swahili Beach during that period of between Christmas and New Year's?
No, that's a rough
now
period.
The time, because the time in Indiana, which is like what 3 years ago, ilikuwa 300 and something a night.
I was there this December, Jan. Those people paid $500 a night. Because it includes
with inflation and everything right now.
Yes, it included the celebration of New Year's Eve into New Year's. So $500 a night for someone who has sat there and has planned, and maybe you want to get. There's a lot of people who actually come that side of the lake during that Christmas period because they want to do something different for Christmas. Hawataka kwenda Shags per se. So hata wanakubaliana, they meet as a family in that area and come to see the lake and enjoy the breeze and all sorts of different things. So all of those things from a touristic perspective are great for that area.
But now, you unless Omosha natulipia. But now...
No, but Ali, 500 need the high end. Kuna zile unaweza lipa hata kama...
Zio moja akona dead capital look.
Okay. You have dead capital.
Zio moja iko kwa lake.
Mine is by the lake. Come with your tent, you will pitch tent and you lala there.
Hapo basi tutakuja. Hiyo sotano, hiyo inaenda index fund hiyo hapo. Man, 500 a night.
But you see, Ali, what you can do is you can use those facilities during the day. And then at night you lala somewhere else. So you're not missing so much.
Kwa tent na hipo iko hapo.
Hapana hapo kwa tent. Pali nakwambia dead capital iko hapo kwa tent hipo haifikagi juu iko juu kidogo. Hipo likes vegetation that's right there by the by the lake. Literally.
Tent na hipo haziingiani.
No. Si ndio nakwambia between the hippo and by the time it comes to eat, it will have eaten about 10 people in front of you. So you'll be fine. You'll hear it.
No, now